Ever wonder what it takes to go from like a tiny Florida bar to a global brand?
Right, like worldwide.
Yeah. Today, we're diving into the untold history of Hooters,
With someone who was actually there.
practically from the beginning.
Yeah. Let me tell you, this story, it goes way beyond the orange shorts.
And the, dare we say it,
Owl paraphernalia.
is
We're talking about, ambition, lucky breaks.
more than a few only in Florida moments.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah. So we've got excerpts from a tell-all manuscript by Steve. Steve was a surfing-obsessed accounting student in Jacksonville, Florida, just trying to make a buck with his buddy, Chip.
Classic.
They were running a small payroll company when they stumbled across a classified ad.
Yeah.
And that changed Steve's life.
This ad, it wasn't for Hooters, though.
Right.
It was for this little-known company.
Called Neighborhood Restaurants of America, the company that would eventually hold the worldwide rights to the Hooters brand. And get this, Steve had no idea what he was getting himself into.
None.
He goes to an interview with these two CPAs
Okay.
who are auditing the company, and they're practically laughing at him.
They're like, what is this guy?
Yeah.
Like, what's he doing here?
And they tell him, you'll know what it is tonight.
Right.
Some big inside joke.
You have to picture these CPAs, maybe in their, crisp suits, sitting across from this laid-back surfer dude,
Coolly.
knowing he's about to step into a world of, let's just say, controlled chaos.
Talk about an understatement. So that night, they all head down to the Hooters in Orange Park, Florida.
Okay.
And that's where Steve meets Hugh Connerty, the man with a vision for taking Hooters global.
The mastermind. But here's where the story takes a turn.
Okay.
Connerty, he didn't actually found Hooters. In fact, he was dead set on opening a chain of steakhouses.
Really?
Yeah, he even had the name all picked out, J.J. Wingers.
J.J. Wingers.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't have the same ring to it, does it?
No, not quite as kitschy.
So what happened?
Yeah.
Why did he ditch the steakhouse dream for Hooters?
Enter Wayne Taliaferro, a real estate broker who was working with Connerty on securing locations for his steakhouses.
Okay.
Taliaferro suggests they check out this local bar in Clearwater called, you guessed it, Hooters.
Okay. All right. Already sensing a fateful turn of events here. What was it about this little Clearwater bar that made Connerty change his entire business plan? Was it the wings? The atmosphere?
Well, according to Steve, Connerty was immediately captivated. He saw something special in that, dimly lit, somewhat sticky floored establishment. He realized that sometimes the greatest opportunities come disguised as, quirky, offbeat ventures.
I like that.
And he knew right then and there that he had to get his hands on this Hooters concept.
But I'm guessing acquiring Hooters wasn't as easy as just making an offer.
No.
There were the original owners,
Right.
the infamous Hooters 6, to contend with.
The Hooters 6.
And they weren't just going to hand over their creation, right?
You're right. Legend has it that when Connerty approached them with his offer, their response was a resounding, and I quote, "Fuck you."
Wow.
These guys, they were a tight-knit group. They weren't about to sell their little gold mine, especially not to some steakhouse guy.
So what did Connerty do? Did he just walk away?
Connerty, being the determined entrepreneur that he was, almost went ahead with his own version, his J.J. Wingers.
Right.
Which would have been a fascinating what-if scenario
Totally.
in the world of chicken wings.
But ultimately, he knew he had to make a deal with the Hooters 6.
He had to.
So how did he win them over? What did it take to convince them to let go of their baby?
It wasn't easy, but Connerty, he was persistent, and he was also willing to put his money where his mouth was. He offered the Hooters 6 $10,000.
$10,000.
Which, for a brand that would become a global phenomenon, a relative pince,
Yeah.
and 3% of all future gross revenues.
Wow. That's quite a gamble. Talk about believing in an idea. So that was it. The Hooters 6 signed on the dotted line, and the rest is history.
Well, they did shake on a deal, but Connerty had his work cut out for him. As part of the agreement, he had to open a staggering 50 restaurants in just 10 years.
50 restaurants in 10 years.
Yeah.
That's ambitious, to say the least. What happened if he failed?
If he didn't meet that target, he would have to pay a hefty penalty. $100,000 for every restaurant short of his goal. Talk about high stakes.
Wow, that's a lot of pressure. So we've got Connerty, this ambitious businessman with a brand new, well, almost brand new concept and a ticking clock. What could possibly go wrong?
Well, for starters, those early days were a whirlwind of let's say, eccentric personalities,
Oh, I bet.
financial headaches,
Yeah.
and enough close calls to make your head spin.
I can only imagine.
Steve's manuscript gives us a peek behind those orange curtains, and it introduces us to the people who shaped those pivotal early years.
All right, I'm hooked. Give me the inside scoop. Who are these characters? And what were those early days at Hooters HQ really like? So Connerty has this brand, right, with huge potential and a ticking clock. It's time to build an empire. But first, he needed to understand the heart and soul of this Hooters thing.
Right.
Steve paints a hilarious picture of his trip to the very first Hooters in Clearwater, Florida. Can you imagine what was going through his mind as he stepped into that original location?
Oh, I bet. It's like stepping into a time capsule, right? Sting describes the original Hooters as, well, a bit rough around the edges.
Okay.
You know, a far cry from the polished, beach-themed establishments we know today. He was actually there for the very first Hooters University,
Oh, wow.
affectionately dubbed Beer Goggle U.
Beer goggle you. Gotta love it. But seriously, what did they teach at Hooters University? Was it all about the
The
uniform? Yeah.
Well, you might be surprised to learn that beneath the, shall we say, attention-grabbing uniforms, there was an actual focus on customer service, creating a fun, engaging experience.
Okay.
But yes, Steve's manuscript definitely hints at some memorable, let's call them, learning experiences.
I bet.
Yeah.
But let's rewind a bit. Before Beer Goggle U, before Connerty and his vision of global domination, there were the Hooters Six holding court in their Clearwater kingdom.
Right. The Godfathers.
Who were these guys?
Yeah.
Really, were they just a bunch of guys who stumbled into success?
Well, the story is a bit more nuanced than that.
Right.
It actually begins, believe it or not, with a gas station. One of the Hooters Six, a man named Bobby Rainier, owned this gas station that was on the market.
Okay.
Enter Eddie Drost, another member of the Six, a real estate broker who also happened to be married to a former Playboy playmate.
Okay. A gas station, a Playboy connection. I'm starting to get a clearer picture of the Hooters Six here. This is where L.D. Stewart comes in, right? The infamous L.D. Stewart.
The one and only. Now, L.D., according to Steve's account, was quite the character.
Oh, I bet.
He was actually banned from every bar in Clearwater.
Wow.
A bit too enthusiastic for their tastes, let's say.
Enthusiastic. That's a polite way of putting it, I'm sure. So what does a guy like that do when he can't find a bar that will let him in?
He opens his own, of course, and that's exactly what LD set out to do.
Yep.
He approaches Drust about buying that gas station, and together, along with Rainier, they hatched this plan to turn it into a bar. But not just any bar.
Okay.
This bar would serve these newfangled things called buffalo wings,
Mm.
which at the time were a relatively unknown commodity.
So they were ahead of the curve on the whole chicken wing craze. That's impressive. But something tells me there's more to their inspiration than just wings.
You're right. The Hooters Six, despite their reputation as, shall we say, happy-go-lucky guys, they were surprisingly strategic.
Okay.
They had been checking out other successful restaurants looking for inspiration.
Really?
And the one that really caught their eye,
Waffle House.
Waffle House. Seriously, that seems like a pretty wild leap from waffles and hash browns to, well, Hooters. What did they see in a place like Waffle House? It might seem strange, but it makes sense when you think about the Hooters concept. The Six, they were drawn to that open kitchen concept.
Yeah.
The way customers could see their food being prepared, the lively back and forth between the cooks and the servers. They wanted to capture that same energy, that sense of transparency, and, let's be honest, entertainment in their own establishment.
So they took the best of Waffle House.
Mm-hmm.
The energy, the engagement, the open kitchen, and added, let's say, their own unique flair.
Mm.
And Pam, Eddie Drosty's wife, the former playmate,
Yeah.
she played a role in shaping the Hooters aesthetic, right?
Absolutely. According to Steve, Pam was instrumental in developing the Hooters look and feel. She understood the power of creating a certain, fantasy, an escape for their customers.
It's that, come on in, we're glad to see you vibe. But okay, so they've got the concept, the look, the wings. What happened next? Did they just open the doors and become an overnight success?
Not exactly. Remember how we talked about L.D. Stewart's, let's just call it, his unique brand of enthusiasm?
How could I forget?
Well, during the grand opening of the very first Hooters,
Yeah.
L.D. got into it.
Oh, no.
And according to legend, he actually got himself banned
No.
from his own bar.
You've got to be kidding me. Banned from his own grand opening. That's incredible.
It really is. But amidst all the chaos, all the only at Hooters moments, the concept was catching on. People loved the wings, the atmosphere, the whole experience. Their little bar was becoming a bona fide phenomenon.
Setting the stage for a certain ambitious entrepreneur to walk in and see the potential for something even bigger.
Exactly. Connerty saw their success, recognized they were onto something special, and he was determined to be a part of it, even if it meant going head-to-head with the Hooter Six and their, shall we say, unconventional management style.
So Connerty swoops in, makes them an offer they can't refuse.
Well, an offer they almost refused. Those negotiations, they were about as smooth as a plate of dry wings. But eventually, Connerty secured the deal that would change everything.
But even with the deal in place, they're still a long way from 50 restaurants.
Right.
And they're not exactly rolling in dough in those early days. What changed? How did they get from those chaotic beginnings to where they are today? So they've got this like quirky, high-energy brand that's catching on like wildfire,
Totally.
but also a mountain of debt and a management style that's, well, let's just say loose.
Right.
How does Connerty turn this runaway train into a well-oiled chicken wing selling machine?
That's where things get really interesting. It wasn't just about expanding, it was about imposing order on a chaotic system.
Right.
And a lot of that came down to the money, or lack thereof. Remember Robert Brooks, the CEO of Eastern Foods, who pushed for a CFO?
Oh, yeah, the voice of reason who wasn't afraid to, like, lay down the law.
Exactly. He was keeping a close eye on Hooters' financials, and let's just say he wasn't seeing the kind of returns he expected.
Okay.
Brooks realized that for Hooters to reach its full potential, they needed someone who could wrangle those finances
Right.
and bring some much-needed structure to the operation.
Makes sense, but who could they get to take on this financial hot mess?
Yeah.
It's not like being Hooters CFO was the most sought-after job in the financial world at that point.
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
But Brooks had a solution. Dale Taruya, a sharp management consultant who just happened to be married to one of the executives at Eastern Foods.
Okay.
Taruya was known for his strategic thinking and his ability to, shall we say, bring order to chaos.
Okay, but was Taruya on board with this whole Hooters thing? It seems like a pretty far cry from, like, the corporate world he was used to.
Well, it's a testament to Taruya's vision that he recognized the potential in this diamond in the rough. What's even more surprising is that he initially agreed to work for free.
Wow. Talk about a leap of faith.
Talk about believing in an idea.
So Taruya steps in, and what does he do? Did he just come in with a spreadsheet and start, like, swinging?
Well, he definitely brought his spreadsheet A-game.
I bet.
Steve describes how, before Taruya, each Hooters restaurant was practically operating independently. General managers were writing checks from their own accounts with little to no centralized financial control. It was a recipe for disaster.
That sounds like a nightmare for an accountant.
Oh, yeah.
No wonder Brooks was concerned.
Oh, right. So Taruya came in and with Brooklyn's backing started implementing actual financial systems. He brought all those independent Hooters restaurants under one financial umbrella, which must have been a monumental task.
That's a huge undertaking. I'm guessing not everyone was thrilled about these new rules and regulations.
You're catching on.
Yeah.
Change is never easy, especially when you're talking about a company with such a, strong independent streak. But Taruya was persistent.
Right.
He knew that for Hooters to thrive, they needed a solid financial foundation.
It's amazing how they went from, like, near financial ruin to becoming this global brand.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just about getting the money straight, was it? They had to turn Hooters into something more than just a local phenomenon.
Absolutely. They needed to capture that lightning in a bottle and translate it into a brand that could resonate with people all over the world.
Yeah.
But, as I mentioned earlier, that's a deep dive for another time.
All right. You've teased it enough. But you owe me some wings after this, that's for sure.
Deal.
So what does this all mean for you, our listeners? We've journeyed from a humble gas station to the brink of global domination, all through the eyes of one guy who found himself caught up in the wild world of Hooters. What stands out to you?
I think the biggest takeaway here is that success can come from the most unexpected places.
Right.
The Hooters story, it isn't just about chicken wings and,
Yeah.
it's about the power of vision, the importance of taking calculated risks, and the realization that sometimes a little bit of chaos can be the catalyst for something truly extraordinary.
And let's not forget those colorful characters.
Yeah.
Seems like every chapter of this story have a new, larger-than-life personality.
Absolutely. It makes you wonder how much of Hooters' success was a result of careful planning and how much was just pure luck,
Right.
being in the right place at the right time.
That's a great question. Was it destiny, or was it those delicious chicken wings?
Right.
Maybe we'll never know for sure, but one thing's for certain. The Hooters story is a testament to the fact that sometimes truth really is stranger than fiction.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the untold history of Hooters. For those who want to learn more about Steve's wild ride, we'll have a link to his manuscript in the show notes. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.